Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
And welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Tonight we have Jim Wang of Wallet Hacks, and he's going to help talk about what it takes to be a serial entrepreneur. Welcome to our show, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. And the members of the Money Mastermind Show, for everybody else out there, is Kyle Prevost of youngandthrifty.ca, Miranda Marquette of Planting Money Seeds, Peter Anderson of Bible Money Matters, Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog. He's not with us tonight, but he is part of the show. And I'm Glenn Craig of Free From Broke. So, this day and age, you hear about entrepreneurship all the time. How you got to be out there building your own business. You see people, Shark Tank, so on and so forth. But it takes like a certain personality, a certain type of person that can be an entrepreneur that keeps building different companies and businesses. What does it take to be a serial entrepreneur? Maybe let's throw out, like, what does that even mean to be a serial entrepreneur? It sounds almost dangerous, like you want to avoid that type of person.
Well, I try to avoid Jim whenever I can, but
I hate to say you throw a cereal in front of something and like all of a sudden it's like serial killer. Okay, wait, maybe it's not an association we want. And maybe there's a certain psychosis involved with being a serial entrepreneur too. But what do we mean by that? What do you think that's all about, Jim?
I think a serial entrepreneur is someone that, obviously definitionally, just someone who's building business after business, and I think that's driven a lot by a sense of curiosity of solving problems. And so, it's funny. So one of the things that I've always been a fan of is stand-up comics. And what's funny now, like the Louis C.K. and like Chris Rock, is a lot of it's observational. It's like you see these things that are they're a little weird, and then you sort of work on them, and it becomes these bits that are funny and hilarious because everyone else sees it too. And a lot of times I think a serial entrepreneur is someone who's going to be building businesses that they're trying to solve these problems because they see these things, these problems in the world that they're like, this isn't how it should be. I think I can fix it and I can make some money in the process. And so at the core of it, I think a lot of times it's that curiosity, it's that problem solving. It's, what they say, like, the best business is the one that scratches your own itch. And you have to have itches. You have to see these things. Otherwise, without that curiosity, you can't come up with a business because you could then just go to work and be happy and content and not really, have something that you think you could fix necessarily. That's how I see it.
I want to say something really snarky about whiskey right now. I just do. What problem is whiskey solving?
So the ones that can't be solved by anything else, I guess. So there's that.
That's a whole other maybe episode and topic that we could go into, but another time. And maybe Miranda's mentioned that because you, Jim, you've had a lot of experience building different sites and different ventures out there. So you certainly, the reason we have you here is you have a certain success behind your own ventures. What is it that maybe drives you to keep building?
When I started talking about sort of that curiosity, I said it's like problems that you want to solve, but more so there's a bit of fun in figuring things out, in starting a business and figuring out how to make it work. Miranda joked about whiskey, and it's because I have a blog about Scotch called Scotch Addict, and I started that as a hobby. At about the same time, I started Bargaineering, which is the personal finance blog that predated Wallet Hacks. And that was more trying to figure out how to make money blogging about something that I was truly interested in, which, it sounds kind of silly to say, being interested in whiskey, but we all have hobbies. And much like personal finance, when I started, it was about chronicling and journaling sort of that discovery process. And as we learned, years later, like you can make a pretty good living just writing your own experience nowadays. And, other things, like I started a meal plan service with a partner, called $5 Meal Plan. That was me trying to figure out, how to build a business with recurring income. I don't use meal plans. Don't tell anybody. That's probably sacrilegious given that we started. But
we're having Erin on in a couple weeks.
Oh, good. Don't ask her about me using her meal plans. But I mean, I like to cook, so I understand food, and I understand the need to save money, and I recognize the value in meal planning. But I took on that project because I thought it'd be fun to try to figure out how to build a recurring revenue business, and we're at the point now where we have a couple thousand members, and building that community and learning how to keep that alive. Because unlike a blog, with a membership site, that's how I think of it, you need to build that community because they're going to be more willing to pay a monthly fee if, in addition to getting the service, which is the meal plans themselves every week, there's sort of that community there. They're part of something, and it's the service isn't just an email that shows up every week. So, I took on that project because I was curious on whether or not I could do it. I could build it. It's done very well, much in part because of Erin, and because in the end, right, you have to like the meals and the meal plan for you to keep going. But there are all the other execution and tactical things that we've been able to do that has been fun to discover, and it just goes back to the whole curiosity point.
So, like for your partnership there, it sounds like even though maybe, like you said, you want to scratch your own itch, your itch may not be necessarily it's the meals. That's maybe Erin's curiosity that drove her. And where you found it was like, hey, look, you know what? I really like this business part of it. And here's a problem that you see that, hey, can I conquer this? Can I do something with it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not always necessarily what that service would provide to the end customer, but what I can learn out of doing it. And I mean, you asked what are the other traits of an entrepreneur, and looking back, I think, not being afraid to mess up. Because there are some businesses that I've started that didn't do well and that you just shut down, and you never hear about those because they just don't come up in conversation, right? And so you have to be able to start things, learn what you can, learn whether or not you can do it, and then shut it down if you can't. So I think that's another sort of key trait of entrepreneurs.
It's not necessarily an easy process either, and it's certainly not overnight. Right? So it sounds like what you're saying is everything that you do isn't necessarily you're not going to get Facebook every time you go up to bat.
Yeah.
In other words.
But what's fun is you learn something from each of those. And right, the first time you go up to the plate to swing at a pitch, like it's not going to be, chances are you're not going to hit a home run, but you're probably going to be in like Little League. So the stakes are lower, you get to practice, you learn, and if you mess up and you strike out, whatever, you get another at-bat. What you don't want to do is wait until, for some miraculous reason, you manage to make it to the major leagues without ever swinging a baseball bat. This is where the analogy kind of breaks down. But you don't want to have like a high-stakes situation where you have everything riding on the line for the first time for you to try something. That's the worst time to try. So, a lot of times, you try something. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And you try something else, and again, and again, and again, and one of them has to work. Or, I mean, you die of old age, at which point it doesn't matter. So at least you had fun trying all these different things.
I like how you talk about it as like learning and kind of as this process and moving forward. Because a lot of the time when we talk about entrepreneurs or we talk about successful business, we have this idea that there's this overnight success, so-called overnight success. And that's only just because we see the big splashy ending and we kind of forget that there's all this work that goes into it and leading up to it. I think a lot of people, when they think about entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurship, they're like, oh, well, just moving on to this big thing. And if I don't have a big thing, then it's not worth it for me. When the reality is you're really putting it in on the grind and you're going to fail and you're not going to be huge all the time.
Most of the time, you're not going to be huge.
Right.
Right. And there's the survivorship bias. Like you only hear about the success stories. Like no one really talks about the things that end up poorly. And it was kind of funny. So I started listening to this podcast called Startup, and
That's a good
you know,
one.
it's what's fun is so the second season they're talking about this company called Dating Ring, which is like matchmaking, and they go to Y Combinator, they get a little bit of funding, they decide they're going to transition to a lifestyle business. But the most interesting part, the part that I found most valuable was when they were talking to their YC mentor and trying to figure out whether or not to come on the podcast and sort of show the behind the scenes. The mentor was like, don't do it. Because on the outside, all startups, until they implode, look wonderful because they're always talking about like all this crazy growth and no one has to worry about making money. And, you know, you have the whole, everyone's in Silicon Valley, they're all in bars saying, oh, it's so great to be at this, whatever. When in reality, everything's like held together by duct tape and like people making phone calls. And that's what life is. Life is messy. It isn't until like they decide to make a movie out of it, and even then, movies, you know, they gloss up all the good parts and they dumb down all the bad parts, and you don't realize that it mostly is really hard, and you're barely scraping by, and you know that's all part of it. And sometimes the thing dies, and sometimes it succeeds, and sometimes it dies slowly, but that's fine. I mean, it's all part of the experience. It's never like a rocket ship, awesome forever, right? To think that's the case would be a huge mistake.
And it also seems like whatever you're working on now, either as much as it may be failing or as much as it's successful, it doesn't necessarily mean that's your whole trajectory either. Like whatever comes next might be is as good as this is. It might even be bigger. You always hear about an entrepreneur, you know, like, oh, I did this and then I did this, and that's the superstar thing. Whereas a lot of people might have just been happy if they had gotten maybe just a piece of it. But it's the entrepreneur that even if a little bit of success comes along, they're still going out for something else.
Also, whenever you have any sort of business, you're trying as many things as you can think of and that you have time for. And some small fraction of them, they're going to work, and a lot of them aren't. And, you know, that means as you try these different things, you're going to fail a ton. And most of it's going to suck. But the part that doesn't is the part that you remember and the part that drives you to keep going, right? You have a blog, you've been writing articles, no one likes them, no one, you know, shares them on social, and then one day some reporter catches it and you're on, you know, whatever, MSN, Yahoo, one of the portals, and you're like, this is awesome. I'm going to keep doing this. When you think about it, though, that's in part dumb luck. It's not dumb luck. Like, you could do things to improve your chances, but the fact that that thing was seen by that person and caught on this much is in part luck. And if you last at something long enough, you're going to have more lucky situations. And so the question is, can you create sort of that survivorship bias of just doing it long enough? You don't fail until you quit, so you just kind of keep doing it, and then you won't fail.
Well, it's like
little failures.
But what about when it's time to die? I mean, I really liked how you mentioned a little bit earlier that sometimes it's time to let something die. How do you decide that? How do you make that decision as you're going forward when part of you is just like, oh, just if I hang on another couple weeks, then I'll be discovered. If I keep surviving, I'll be fine. But where is that line? Where do you decide when it's time to let it just die and go away?
I think in each of our minds, we have sort of this list of opportunities that we want to pursue. And it's when you get to the point with whatever is your primary focus where you feel like your time is better spent somewhere else, when you've exhausted all the things that you know of what to do, and you just don't have the emotional buy-in to keep going at it, then I would say that's probably a good time to figure out how to exit. Now, if you've built a business that, you know, generates cash flow, you can think, you know, do I let this just glide and just slowly die? Do I try to sell it? Do I whatever? But the point is that you've gotten to the point where you're no longer emotionally vested in this project. And if you don't have that, I often find it's very difficult to grow it, to like wake up and I hate to use the word passionate because it gets overused, but if you aren't waking up thinking about the things that you could do on this project, that means you're not bought into it. And if you're not bought into it, it's really hard to be creative and grow something when you're not thinking about it all the time, whether subconsciously or actively as you're doing things. So, I mean, that for me, as much as, I'm very much like a spreadsheets guy, like numbers and everything, but like everyone else, we all make decisions based on emotion and look for logic to support it. And at the very core is if it's not exciting you, if it's not, if you're not waking up wanting to do something for it, it might be time to think about, is there an alternative project that I can work on?
The teacher side of me, Jim, wonders, is other than just jumping in with both feet and failing a bunch of times, is there anything you can do to increase your chances, whether it's your third company, your first company? Is there a way to prepare, or any informal or formal education that you think highly of?
It's a good question. This is probably, I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I think of the thing that I'm most interested in, and I try to figure out, what can I do in the next couple of weeks to figure out whether this is something that'll be big or just not at all. And it's very much like getting your first customer, like figuring out, what milestones do I need to hit within the first like 3 months for me to take this seriously. And one of the things that I did with Kasai Media, which is the personal finance influencer network. It's a very basic idea that's been around for a while, but I figured I partnered with someone that was very big in the lifestyle space. I figured I had a lot of personal finance company contacts. So I told myself, if I can get on within the first like month or two, I think I must have been on like 30 phone calls with companies. And I said, if I can get on 30 calls and I can get a couple campaigns, just enough of like the really good, like the getting on the front page of Yahoo or whatever, like some really good events happening with this company, then we'll keep it going, and then we'll get a sense of how big it could be. And we were able to get a couple campaigns. We talked to some companies. Some wanted to do them later, some wanted to do it earlier. And it was almost as if it was like one step beyond proof of concept. Right. I didn't build a prototype or anything. We didn't build anything. I just called people, emailed people, put it in a spreadsheet. And then once we got to the point where we needed something bigger, then we could build sort of, we didn't build software, but build a more secure process in the back to sort of manage all these contacts and sort of like a sales funnel. But I think you have to go out and do it and figure out pretty quickly whether it'll be effective.
And for that, it sounds like it was everything that you did before prepared you for that. Like, or you were able to take, like you said, you had all these personal finance contacts, so you were able to take and leverage what you did in a prior business and prior work and contacts and build that into something else. So even whether or not you had the success you had, just that experience probably helped prepare you for Kasai Media.
Yeah, and I mean, you always have to leverage your strengths, right? And so what I knew is that, I had a lot of friends who were personal finance bloggers. I talked to a lot of companies. Now, there'd been a bunch of years since I stopped writing Barganeering, and when I started reaching out to these companies again, but there was still the relationship there to some degree. Like, people knew who I was. It wasn't like a cold email or a cold phone call. So I have that advantage. I mean, in life, it's not fair. You got to take whatever advantage you can get. And you have to think about the things that you can take, you can leverage for your benefit. And for that, a lot of that's relationships. Right? If you wanted to start it completely from scratch, I would think the hardest part is not so much getting the companies, but for getting the bloggers, the actual influencers, the product that you're selling to even pay attention to you. Right? So I covered that hurdle. I jumped over that hurdle, whatever. And the next part was then getting on phone calls and learning how to sell, which is not so. So here's the part of that project that really interested me is I didn't feel very comfortable selling. And so I thought, well, the best way to get over that is to try to sell something. And so I thought, well, why don't I just go on these phone calls, try to pitch them this idea, try to figure, like, I started reading books and learning how to sell different things, which surprisingly, effective selling doesn't feel like selling at all, which is good. But that was the part of it that really excited me and what I wanted to learn. And so through all the phone calls, it helped me become better at it. And it's been fun. I don't know.
And it sounds like just there, you're also talking about the passions that you have. So when it's not just something that you're trying to do door to door 9 to 5. You're not selling encyclopedias, right? That's just work. But here's something where this is what you were doing, this is who you were. This selling comes off differently. It's not selling. It's like, I've built this and I know it can help you.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
I know
different.
it was fun to talk to startups, because here are companies that are doing really interesting things and being really innovative, and they're not getting the response from bloggers that they'd like because they're startups and no one knows who they are, right? So they're an email among the thousands of emails that people are getting, and they're unable to sort of spread that message, which kind of sucks. And so in that was where I felt, oh, this is awesome that I can bring sort of these companies that are doing cool things. And I sort of felt like there were fellow entrepreneurs that I wanted to help when they had a good product. When they didn't, oftentimes I would just say, there's really not much. I don't think we can help you get, because they see sponsored posts and things like that as a paid acquisition channel, right? They want to pay X dollars to get a number of signups, and they need the signups to cost them about whatever it is, $1, $2, $5. But if I don't think their product is really that good, then this will be a one-off thing where we do like a small campaign. It's not going to work. And then it won't really benefit them. It won't benefit us in the long term. And it really won't benefit the bloggers either, because they're promoting, they would be writing a review or talking about a service that I already felt wasn't really that good. And I don't know, so it was fun because a lot of these startups do have interesting services because they got funding for it, but the ones that don't, maybe they're less interesting. And so I don't know. All throughout the process, learning to do sales, and I don't think I'm good at it by any means, but I'm certainly far more comfortable. When I started, I used to have not a script, but sort of like a list of bullet points in case I ever got lost in a conversation and didn't know what to say next, because sometimes those happen. I was like, oh, well, now I can go on a call and I can talk to someone, build a rapport, and find out about their service and find out what they need without having to have that list. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
One of the things that I really like about what you said was you were uncomfortable. And I think a lot of, what's that saying, that your growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. So I really like that you talk about being willing to kind of get out of that comfort zone.
I think, there are two schools of thought, like you work on your strengths or you work on your weaknesses. And I mean, I guess this falls into the work on the weakness thing, but to counter that, because they say, work on your strengths, you get better at your strengths, and it's usually a far better use of your time. But the core of it, I also feel like on some weaknesses, you want to have a certain level of competency. And I didn't feel like I had that level of competency, so that's why I wanted to work on it. And I don't know if starting a business with that in mind, we didn't start the business because I was like, I want to get better at sales. But that was sort of the thing about it that I latched onto as the fun thing, or the thing that would help me grow as a person. And so sort of like the meal plan thing was about, how do I build this? The number one reason is because obviously you want to, generate income and you want to build a good company and things like that. But the part that I latched onto that was the most interesting was work on retention, work on upgrade rates, work on all this these number things and community building. And in any project, you have to find, day to day, there'll be things you don't like, and you have to sort of latch on and find the thing that you really enjoy digging into and try to do more of that.
I think if you're going to be a serial entrepreneur, it really almost sounds like you have to kind of enjoy the process of building something, of growing something from the ground up and seeing it from the infancy stage all the way up to where it's a full-fledged product or service or whatever the case may be, and also just enjoying the process of building something and learning new things, like learning sales or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Totally agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
you said you didn't like necessarily using the word passion, but there's always going to be some that spark that keeps you going. Like you run into any entrepreneur, and they all seem to have some sort of maybe frenetic excitement about what they're doing. You don't run into people going, yeah, I'm doing this. Where they're just like, yeah, I've got this going on, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this. They have this energy towards the work that they're doing. It's not like, oh yeah, it's just another day in the office. Because being an entrepreneur it's not that 9 to 5 grind. It's a different type of energy that you're putting into it.
Yeah, and I think the problem with the term passion is it becomes very loaded, and people think about, I need that to happen every single day for me to have a business or continue to be involved. And earlier Miranda asked me, how do you know when to quit? And I sort of said, it's when you don't have the passion. But you will lose passion and excitement about anything over a period of time. You start something and be super excited because the learning curve will be huge. It's going to be constant discovery and constant growth, and you're going to get addicted to it. And then you'll go over like a little hump where you maybe don't learn, or there are other things that you have to deal with, and you won't be passionate about dealing with it by any means. And the problem is you have to push through that. Well, if you started the whole thing thinking, I need to be passionate 24/7, you're going to hit that moment, well, I'm not passionate anymore, time to quit. Well, no, you have to push through that in order to get to the next level or the next phase of that business. And, work is called work for a reason, right? You have to just work. And sometimes you won't be super excited about it. But if you haven't been excited about it in a year, maybe, right? But if you haven't been excited in a couple months, okay, maybe you just got to push through this section of it. So that's why it's always hesitant with the whole passion thing.
In the New York Times, Jay Goltz, author and entrepreneur, he talked about how one of the main attributes of a successful entrepreneur is tenacity, just being able to stick with it and work hard through those tough times, and knowing what your ultimate goal is and being able to work through those tough days where you don't want to make the sales calls or whatever, sticking with it and getting over the humps and staying all the way through to the end.
Yeah.
So.
Tenacity is just a nicer word for being stubborn, right? I'm going to do it. I just got to fight through this. I'm not going to let so here's the funny thing. There were a lot of times when I would have a scheduled call, especially early on. I'd be like, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to do this. And I thought to myself, there's no reason other than myself for me not to do this. Right? It'd be one thing if I'd sent like 3 or 4 emails to someone trying to schedule something, and they kept blowing me up. And on the 5th time, I was like, I don't want to email this person because they're just going to blow me off. That I can kind of understand, you giving up on that process. But if you already have a scheduled call and you just don't feel like doing it, and the only thing stopping you is you because you don't feel like it, like you can't let yourself stop it. Like the world is going to conspire against you, and you have to have that chip on your shoulder and feel like everyone's out to get you. You have to at least be on your side, and you can't quit. And so that's where I draw sort of my stubbornness and tenacity. It's like, listen, other people are going to try to stop me. I can't stop me, because if I do, I'm not going to go anywhere.
So it's interesting how you're saying the world is always going to conspire against you, because there's also like this other attitude out there, and maybe not entrepreneurship, but that if I just put it out there, if I tell people what my passion is, it's going to happen. And it sounds like what you're talking about is almost like the exact opposite of that. Like you're going to have to overcome a lot, but you're going to have to be the one that does it. And that maybe is the big difference.
I don't know if there's any one right way, but I think whatever gets you to do the work and continue to do it when it sucks and you don't like it is what you have to focus on. If you have to draw a vision board of how you want your life to be, and that's what motivates you to continue working when you don't want to work, then do that. If it's, I don't know, whatever the secret is, like visualizing your future, whatever gets you to do it. For me, it's thinking that other people are trying to beat me, and I don't want them to beat me, so I'm going to keep going out there and doing what I can to prevent it. There's no right answer. There's so many different ways to do it. Just pick the one that works and just keep doing that one. And if it stops working and I need to make a vision board to help me visualize my future, then I'll do that. But I think what I'm doing is working so far.
It's interesting, Jim, as a sports junkie, that almost sounded like a clip out of like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or some of those guys have a very similar view. So it's interesting to see, similar motivation or similar mindset can be applied to excelling at a kid's game like basketball and being an entrepreneur, and that you sort of have similar ways of facing challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm to the degree of like a Jordan or Kobe where I think everyone is out to get me and the guy across from me, I need to not only beat but embarrass.
Annihilate, yeah.
Right? Like I don't think it's like that. But there is a certain there's a us versus the world. Now that us could be a group
Sure.
of people that I see as us. It may change from situation to situation. But there's very much like that's how I motivate myself, is that there's competition and I want to win it somehow. Now, that's not at all costs, right? Because there are people, like I remember working 9 to 5, and there are people that wanted to get promoted and work up the corporate ladder at the cost of spending time with their family. Like, yeah, I want to win at the businesses that I have, but not at the cost of friends, family, health, things like that, because, I hope that when I'm old, I don't think to myself, man, I wish I went on more walks and I'm not this, unhealthy person, or my kids don't know who I am because I'm always on the internet working on these internet businesses with my internet friends. Like, I just don't want that to happen. And I think because I know that at this age it won't, but to the extent I don't have to sacrifice those other things that I find more important in order to pursue sort of these business and financial goals, that's what I'll do.
Sounds like you've struck a pretty good balance, Jim. I think we're all familiar with a lot of your success, and obviously that's why we have you here. So it sounds like you've hit.
I thought you guys liked me.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that too. That too. Yeah. No.
I caught my son's cold, and so that's why my voice, I don't know if you guys noticed, as this has gone on longer, my voice has gotten a little hoarser, but I'm just like, I gotta go on more walks or something so I'm not unhealthy in my old age.
Sorry, there, I just got cut out there, so I got a little thrown out of the window there. But just to wrap up here, at the end of the show, thank you for your time. We like to have a final word where we talk a little bit and kind of sum up what we're doing. So we'll go around, and Peter, what's your final word on being a serial entrepreneur? What do you think about that?
Well, I just think you have to know yourself and know if you have the right personality for that, because I think you're really going to have an optimistic outlook, kind of a go-go mentality to get things done when they need to get done. You can't be the kind of person who's going to be making excuses of why you can't get things done. You have to be the kind of person that finds solutions for problems and tries to fix things and build something big. So just know it when you start whether you're the right type to be that serial entrepreneur.
And Miranda, what's your final word on being a serial entrepreneur? All right, we're having a little difficulty with Miranda's sound right there. That's okay. We'll jump to Kyle, and maybe we'll come back to Miranda. Kyle, what's your views on serial entrepreneurship?
Well, I have to admit that I am not, in fact, a serial entrepreneur as of yet. Maybe a baby steps entrepreneur would be a better description, but I know this much. I know I get excited when I do talk to successful entrepreneurs and people that are talking with the passion that Jim does and a little bit of knowledge and experience about tackling different challenges, and that fires me up to try and do different things. As he's talking, I'm like, oh, I could apply this, and I could put this spin on that in my line of work. And so, the more people you can network with that have sort of that inner fire, that entrepreneurial drive, I think the better off you'll be.
All right, and Miranda, let's jump back to you. What's your final word? All right, we're still cutting out there. That's okay. I think that's part of the stickativity in being an entrepreneur. You know, these things get thrown out to you, and you're always going to get a curve thrown to you, and it's how you react to it. You know, you get back out there and try to push through, and that's what we're doing here, pushing through thanks to our technical difficulties we've been having. But Jim, what's your final word on being a serial entrepreneur?
I think actually it's funny that Miranda is having these technical problems because, you know, as I said before, businesses on the inside, like they are messy. They're not perfect. And as much as you'd like, you know, everything to go 100%, you know, your way all the time, they don't. And it's how you react to it, because if you let them beat you up and stop you and prevent you from doing something, then you're going to stop. And if you stop, then you will not have a business. So keep at it. Learn from these mistakes. Someone get Miranda a headset that works, and have fun. You guys are always having fun, so that part's not a problem.
You know, and that's an important thing too. Sometimes you have to team up with people who help your entrepreneurial idea, right? Like you were talking about, Jim, how you teamed up for the meal plans.
Yep.
You know, you found somebody else that found that other side that was able to do something here. I think we at the Money Mastermind Show, we teamed up because we all brought something different to the show, and as a result, when one of us has a little hiccup or whatever, we have the rest of the team that can jump in and help out there. So,
sure.
Jim, thank you again.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
For those who may not be familiar with Wallet Hacks or any of the projects that are out there, let us know what you're doing. What is it out there? Where can people find you online?
All right, so the wallethacks.com is the new personal finance site, and I try to focus on, you know, strategies and tactics for people to get ahead financially and more clever ways to not take the regular road. The meal plan service, if you're looking to save money on meals, $5 meal plan, and if you like whiskey, and everybody should like whiskey, especially Scotch, you can go to scotchaddict.com. Love to have you. We have a fun group there. It's probably my most entertaining part because it involves alcohol and you get samples. My most entertaining project, but yeah, love to have you at any of them.
I'm just trying to, you know, like you look at common themes that run through people's businesses, and you've got a $5 meal plan, Scotch, and personal finance, and that, yeah.
That pretty much sounds like college to me. I don't know.
You get the personal finance, so you have enough money. You know, you get the $5 plan, so everything's taken care of in that. And now you have enough money for the Scotch. So
it all works out.
The natural tie-in.
It's all synergetic. Thank you again, Jim, for your time and for sharing your expertise with us and our audience. And everybody out there, thank you for listening. And until next week, be good with your money.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at moneymastermindshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.